Well, welcome in everybody to part one of the Week 13 preview. I almost said recap. Only 2 more weeks for the fantasy regular season, and then we're done. It goes by fast. Brian, what did you think of that Thursday night game? It was pretty fun game to watch. A bonanza.
Yeah, it turned out. Yeah, it went absolutely crazy, which I don't think anyone really thought the Seahawks were going to do what they did. Yeah, it was nice. I really enjoyed that they were putting up points because that kept Dallas doing the same thing. So yeah, it's always nice when you go over 70 points for the game. Everyone had a good game, basically. Except maybe Tyler Lockett. I can't remember what he did. I know he had a few catches, but
I think he had 4 or 5 for like 60 or something. So yeah, not great.
Yeah, not terrible either though. Like he didn't not killing you.
Yeah, that was good to see. I didn't expect that at all. I wouldn't have been too shocked if it was like a like Seattle keeping it close. I just didn't expect it to be like over 70 points type of shootout, So, yeah, sucks because I don't think most people probably shied away from Geno. I know I did. But, there was no reason to start him, that's for sure. But, yeah, awesome game. Dak, man, is he the MVP of, like, fantasy? Like, it's funny because I was kind of talking shit about him 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, and like, what the hell is wrong with him? He sucks. And literally ever since then, he's been like maybe the QB1 up until that point. He's QB3 heading into this week's game. After this week's game is going to put him in the QB2 spot with obviously Jalen Hurts still playing. And yeah, is he like one of the fantasy MVPs at the quarterback position?
Yeah, he kind of would have to be, like, 'cause I know where he was going was basically probably in the 8, 9, 10 range, probably. I know I was able to like score him in like later rounds in best ball a lot in the early drafts and stuff. So some of those teams are doing really well.
Yeah,
but yeah, I would say. Because, I think he even went after Richardson in our league, right? Like, you took Richardson
probably
before Dak. I think there was, like, the same round, but it was at least round 7 or 8. So that just kind of shows you. I remember we kind of talked about this before the season started, like, about, like, it seemed like a lot of people were going earlier on QB this year. Like, a lot of the QBs got pushed up because they were really big difference makers, the top elite guys last year.
Yep.
And we kind of talked about, like, well, is 1 year, does that really, like, mean we should change the way how it's been always, kind of, as far as, like, you can get a top 5 quarterback in the later rounds. Obviously, it's, like, not easy to do, but even just, like, streaming quarterbacks, like, has been really successful this year. Look at Sam Howell and CJ Stroud, what they're doing. And it's like, I bet those guys weren't even drafted in most leagues, Definitely not Sam Howell, and Stroud would have been a QB, like a second quarterback as your last pick or something. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff. We'll have to do a recap at the end of the season, like what lessons we learned and everything, and what did we know already. And I think that's one of those things. Like, we knew it already, and then we shied away from it. We're like, oh, maybe it's changing. And then it's like, no, it's still like that.
Yeah. Yeah, Dak was in that. I'm just looking at it now. Deshaun Watson, Dak, Tua, Aaron Rodgers were within like a round and a half of each other. And I remember even having conversations like Daniel Jones versus Dak and stuff like that. So yeah,
Smith versus Dak.
Yeah, he was definitely in that like 9 to 12 tier after Lawrence and Fields. Yeah, and he's QB2 as of right now. So yeah, it's pretty awesome to see. And that's with a bad start too. Not bad. I shouldn't say bad start, but he had a couple of duds in there. But anyways, we're going to get into 6 matchups in today's video and just kind of talk about it's a pretty easy week because you have 6 teams on bye and injuries and things like that. So just kind of talk about some of the fringe starters like in this first game. Should be a relatively quick game. Chargers, Patriots. Just going to double check the injury report. We'll start with the Chargers. I didn't write the over-unders on this. I meant to, but I think I saw it was like in the low 40s. I guess my question for you is so Keenan Allen didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday. It's Friday afternoon, so we're going to be getting some updates here soon. But is there anyone pass catcher you would start, tight end or wide receiver, if Keenan Allen's out for the Chargers?
I mean, it definitely helps out. Basically, the only guys that are going to be there, kind of a thing. I'm not going to feel good. I think Jalen Guyton would be the next guy up, as far as the receivers, right? Because, did Quentin Johnson, is he practice? Yeah, he's logging full practices. So, I mean, it'd be kind of pick your poison between Dropston and Jalen Guyton. Like, I think if you're starting those guys, it's because it's a desperation wide receiver 3 play, given the bye weeks. I think it's like you could throw them out there. They have a shot. They have the quarterback, but I almost feel just as good, honestly, if we're talking about a flex position. Just start Gerald Everett in your flex spot, and then I don't know if you should really do that, but I think it definitely makes Gerald Everett a more attractive play in tight end.
Yeah,
for sure. That's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, Guyton took over. They basically, they didn't say they benched Quentin Johnston, but they kind of did, and Guyton was like the main starter alongside Keenan Allen against the Ravens Sunday night. So yeah, I mean they'll both be out there for sure, but I kind of like Guyton as well over Johnston. So as a not a bad like desperation flex, So if he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Chargers, does it affect? And I agree with about Everett. I would bump him up like above guys like Logan Thomas, Juwan Johnson, Cade Otton. I would bump Everett above those guys.
Juwan Johnson's kind of in a similar situation though. Yep. Like, who the hell's going to catch the ball there? It's him and Taysom Hill and A.T. Perry, I guess. And so far, so I don't know.
Yeah, I just lean the quarterback, the better quarterback. So,
sure.
Although it is a worse matchup, the Patriots are for tight ends than the Lions are. So yeah, I mean they're both right in that boat for sure. I'll just lean Everett slightly more. But does it change anything with Herbert? Or are you still starting Herbert this week, considering 6 teams on bye?
Yeah, I think with the 6 teams on bye, it really does change things. Like, you could definitely pivot to someone if you're feeling like not much better. Like, if you could do Goff at New Orleans, like, I might do that. That's not a great matchup either. But I mean, at least he has his team healthy. This is assuming if Keenan Allen misses. So I don't know. Like, maybe even Baker. I wouldn't feel good about starting those guys over Herbert. Like, I'm probably just still starting him. But it's definitely something you can consider given the bye weeks.
Yeah. And just, it's going to be tough without, because Palmer is definitely not playing, and Keenan Allen, if he's not there. So kind of agree with that. And on the Patriots side, they're always super easy because they are terrible. It's Ramondre for sure, who's actually been playing quite well the last 6 weeks or so. And I mean, Demario Douglas, I think, is going to miss this game because he hasn't practiced with a concussion. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be out. I mean, if you're super desperate, Devontae Parker might not be like terrible, just because who else are they going to throw the ball to? I don't even know who the quarterback's going to be yet. Is it going to be Zappy? Is that confirmed? I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. Either way, they both suck. So Zappy and Mac Jones are not very good. I don't know. Any interest in Devontae Parker if Demario Douglas is out?
No, I'd rather start the guys we already talked about. I'd rather start the 2 Chargers guys. I'd rather start Quentin Johnston over him, honestly. Just given the quarterback play and everything. Like, if he can figure out how to hold on to a ball, like, he'll have a better game, most likely, than Devontae Parker. So, yeah, I'd start the Chargers guys over him, and I'd start A.T. Perry over him, too, if Olave misses with concussion.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far with A.T. Perry just because, I mean, the dude has like 4 career targets. Like, um, I'm just looking at where Devontae Parker's ranked, like around guys like Robert Woods, Tutu Atwell, Zay Jones, Rondell Moore. Like, if DeMario's out, I'll throw Parker in there and just hope he gives me 5 for 60. I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at it and he gives you 5 for 60, 5 for 70 or something. Wouldn't be that surprised because it's against the Chargers too. So that's kind of it. I don't want to obviously like it's Ramondre, and that's the only kind of lock on this team. So anyone else we need to talk about with the Patriots?
No.
Yeah. So then we'll move
Definitely
on.
not.
Cardinals Steelers. Cardinals Steelers here. Big question with the Cardinals is James Conner. What are we doing with James Conner at this point, who's not been good since he's come back from his injury? I know he did have like 5 targets or something this last game, which was good to see. But since he got injured and since 2 games before his injury and since his injury, last 5 games, he doesn't have more than 7.5 points in any of them at PPR. Benching Connor? What are we doing?
I don't think so. Given again 6 teams on bye, it's like you're gonna have a hard time finding 24 guys to start in front of him. Possibly, I don't know, but I think you're still kind of rolling him out there, and just kind of like he still seems to be the lead in the backfield, I guess. He had 40% of snaps last week. I know Michael Carter got some play last week, which is I like him as like a stash candidate for sure. But yeah, I don't know what happened last week as I'm like looking at the actual splits.
He was the lead, but it was a 3-headed monster. It was Amari DiMercato, Michael Carter, and James Conner. So it just makes me a little afraid of starting him. Like, I don't think he's a must start. Like, I don't know. I'm starting guys like Devin Singletary or James Conner. What are you doing there?
Yeah, I'll pick the guy on the better offense with Singletary there because he's in a. It seems like his situation's kind of moving that way too. Not 3-headed though, so which is good. It's just him and Pierce trading off a little bit now. It seems like. At least this last game, it's like. So yeah, I'll pick Singletary there.
About like AJ Dillon if Aaron Jones is out, or
no, I was going to ask you that one because I know you love AJ Dillon so much. Yeah, I think I'm starting AJ Dillon. God, that's really tough because their matchup is against KC. It's like, but I feel like if Aaron Jones is out, I think you're starting up AJ Dillon because he's probably going to see, 65+% snap share, and they will throw him the ball a little bit too. So,
yep. I mean, last 2 weeks, 14 carries, both of the last 2 weeks, and then 4 targets and 3 targets. So, I think you can both wins. So maybe they have to chase points here, but I think you can pencil him in for more touches. You can guarantee 15 plus touches versus I don't know if you can with Connor.
I would say the touches favor Dillon for sure. Yeah. Like it seems pretty set, and he has only played 50% of the snap share in 2 out of the last 3 games, but the other game was 70, so maybe 65 is aiming a little high, but when he's on the field, they're obviously using him, so 15 plus touches. Basically 15 touches over the last 3 games.
Yeah. It's tough though, because again, Connor did get 5 targets and only for 4 yards, 4 catches for 5 yards, which is terrible. But so I don't know, just he's definitely not a must start for me at this point. Marquise Brown, monitor that situation. If he's playing, I'm starting him, especially in 3 wide receiver leagues. But he is on the injury report. So if he doesn't play, do you like both Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson, who is not practicing yet either? If both those guys are out,
No, I think Wilson got ruled out already. I think.
Okay. So
Yeah,
let's
he
say
got
Marquise
ruled
Brown
out.
doesn't
Just
play.
performing.
Let's say Marquise Brown doesn't play. Do you like Dortch and Rondale Moore as like a potential, just like a flex play this week?
Probably. Like, I think you're throwing them out there because they're going to play. They've used Rondale in interesting ways in the past. Like, he hasn't had a whole lot to do with the offense this year so far, but it's kind of like a revolving carousel of receivers there because of injury. Like, guys are just kind of coming in and out, it seems like. Maybe that's not exactly true, but it's kind of like, let's see, like, I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, their roles are not clearly defined. They will kind of, like, move these guys around. And if they're the only two on the field, then I think they'll be good. And it definitely boosts up Trey McBride.
Yeah, for sure. Which one, real quick before we move on, which one would you choose if you had to choose, Rondale or Dortch? Rondale's had 4 targets the last 2 weeks combined. Dortch has had 17.
Yeah, I know. That's so weird because I remember Dortch was only relevant last year. I didn't even know who the guy was until last year, and it's because when Rondale was out, he basically took over Rondale's role as like the slot guy, and he was being heavily targeted. And it does not seem to be that way these last couple of games. So I don't really know what to make of that. Like, if they're both sitting out there, I'll probably take Rondale just because we've seen more from him in the past, not necessarily this year. And they do give him, they give him out of the backfield sometimes. They use him in interesting ways. So I feel like we've seen him kind of win at different levels of the field. So yeah, I'll go Rondale.
Yeah. And then, McBride to start. Murray, I'd say you're starting over most people. I mean, like Russell Wilson, Goff, Jordan Love. How do you feel between those 3 guys versus Murray? Russell Wilson at Houston, Goff at New Orleans, Love home to the Chiefs.
I think I like Russ, Kyler, Love. Love scares me the most because he's playing Kansas City. I think they're going to be all over his ass, basically. Like, their defense is just playing so well, Kansas City's, where I'm kind of scared for Jordan Love this week in general. But again, like, he might be throwing to catch up kind of a thing. Like, I think, along those same lines, like, I think the easiest matchup defensively is for Russ. So I'd put him at the top of the list.
Yep. That's fair. Kyler maybe more upside, but not Russ. Could be in a shootout with the Texans. It could be a good game for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. Like, they're definitely going to try and control the ball, and maybe. But it seems like Russ is getting consistently, like, he's getting good numbers. They're like, the Broncos are playing good football. I did not think that was like a possibility. Not a lot of people did, especially given like how they started. But he's putting up decent amount of points, even with without multiple touchdowns necessarily. He had multiple last week because he ran one in, but the week before he still scored around 20 fantasy points and 6 point per passing touchdown with only a single touchdown. So passing, that is. So I like what I'm seeing from him. You could definitely do worse.
Okay. I'm going to move on. We spent way too long on the Cardinals, so we'll move on to the Steelers. By the way, Aaron Jones is out. Just got the update, so he's not playing. Steelers, like Najee and Warren at this point are starts, especially this week. Don't think we really need to talk about them. They're both playing well. Receivers, do you like Deontay or Pickens? Given there's a lot of talk about Deontay and just his effort level and on a play and things like that, do you think it's a bounce back for him? Or do you think they could potentially, punish him in a certain way?
I don't know. I don't know. You might know Mike Tomlin's like tendencies when it comes to that stuff more. Like, I know he's not necessarily Bill Belichick when it comes to like punishing guys, but I'm not really sure what his tendencies are. Like, I think I'm still going to start Deontay for at least one more week over Pickens, kind of see like what happens. I mean, they're basically on the field around the same amount. Deontay's still out targeting Pickens. But again, just like I said last week, they are Kenny Pickett targets, so they're not very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in 3 wide receiver leagues, both these guys are starters. 2 wide receiver leagues, I'd lean Deontay as still probably a must start. He's right on the fringe, and then Pickens is not so much. I kind of want to maybe in 2 wide receiver leagues, I can get away from him a little bit more just because just haven't seen it a whole lot. I mean, even last week, they had 400 yards of offense, and everyone's talking about it. Pickens was 3 for 58, so it wasn't necessarily a big part of the offense. Freiermuth is, I think you should be starting him now after we saw 120 yards from him. Like, unless you have one of the top guys, Kittle, Kelsey, Laporta, McBride. What about like Ingram or Freiermuth? Who are you leaning there?
I think I'm gonna lean Freiermuth. I don't know. I feel like just this last week they started talking about like the narrative about like, oh well, Ingram doesn't have a touchdown yet, and they are playing Cincinnati, which is like a pretty decent matchup, but I don't know. I don't know what Cincinnati's gonna bring to the table this week that's necessarily gonna have Jacksonville or Trevor Lawrence specifically throwing the ball very, very much. They might just run all over their ass. Just ball control and defense kind of thing. I don't know. So yeah, I think I'm going to lean Freiermuth there.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to lean Ingram just because I'm going to guarantee he gets a touchdown this week because they talked about it on the broadcast. Like, Trevor Lawrence is well aware that Ingram doesn't have a touchdown. They tried to get him one in that game, didn't work out. I think there was maybe either a penalty or just didn't get it. And yeah, the Bengals give up. They're the 3rd best matchup for tight ends. So, but I'm not going to blame anyone going Freiermuth over Ingram. So, but I do think he gets a touchdown.
Yeah, I was going to say he probably has like less competition in his offense. Freiermuth does for targets, but that's probably not necessarily true given the target share. Like Freiermuth, like he probably has, because he has other receivers and both the running backs can catch also in front of him. So he probably does have as much competition. And I would assume Pickett is going to throw less than Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, I don't mind Ingram.
Yeah. So we'll move on from this game into the Colts-Titans game. Obviously, Zach Moss is a must start. Michael Pittman is always a must start. The only question really to me, is Gardner Minshew for one. So let me ask you, are you starting Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew? All right, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew. Rank those 3 guys. Love home to the Chiefs, Baker home to the Panthers, Minshew at Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I'll put Minshew at the top because I know Tennessee has been good against the run once again, kind of like teams are beating them through the air, or the teams are competing with them because even the Bucks, my poor Bucks, they lost to the Ponies last week. So yeah, I'm gonna put Minshew at the top, Baker second because the matchup's way easier. I'm still putting Love at the bottom because of the KC matchup, basically.
What's funny is Panthers are actually better against quarterbacks than Kansas City is. They're just one of those weird, like, it's the Houston Texans of last year. Like, their defense was sucked, but everyone just runs on them.
Yeah, I know that's kind of been like what's been happening, but I feel like the way Tampa Bay uses Rachaad White is they pass to him a lot. They kind of run through the air a little bit with Rachaad White. So that's kind of like I think it can still be a good game for Baker in that sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I would go Minshew over all those guys as well. So if that's who you're deciding between, go with Minshew. Josh Downs is the only other question. To me, he's kind of a start this week in 3 wide receiver leagues. Like he's kind of in that Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin kind of like area to me of just like I think he's going to get at worst 6-7 targets, and it could be 4 for 30, or it could also be like 4. It could also be like 6 for 90 and a touchdown. Like that's kind of where I put him. I don't think he can explode, but I also think he has like a pretty safe floor of like 7 half PPR points, and with the upside of like 12, 13 if he catches a touchdown. So
yeah,
I don't know how you're feeling about Josh Downs, who's been getting targets with Minshew.
Yeah, heavily targeted last week when he was back to full health, basically, which is his first time in a month. 13 targets, like nothing to sneeze at for sure. And he was getting definitely startable target share before he got injured. So yeah, yep. I don't mind rolling him out there at all.
Yeah, especially in PPR. Half PPR, there's a little more conversation, but definitely in PPR. Yeah, and then no. Obviously, Pittman we said is a must start. Moss must start. Titan side, is there anyone outside of Derrick Henry that's a must start this week?
I don't know. Like Jalen Burks was healthy for 10 minutes. Now he actually did get healthy again. It's an inside joke for we were getting an alert yesterday about Treylon Burks, and it said, "Oh, he went from questionable to healthy." It was a sleeper update, and then he went from healthy to questionable like 10 minutes later. It's like, well, that was a good run there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you're probably still starting Hopkins in 3 receiver sets. Like he is the only guy there, basically. Yeah, like so, and again, we know what the talent is for him. Like obviously, he's another year older and he's kind of fallen off a bit, but he can still pull it off every now and then. And like I said, he basically owns the wide receiver core, so you're probably starting him too.
Yep, I agree with you there. I think even in 2 wide receivers, you could maybe make the case this week. He's still getting targets. I mean, only 5 each of the last 2 weeks, but that's with 13 completion or targets. So 17 attempts, 28 attempts the last 2 weeks for Levis. So you're looking at over 33% and what 20% or so in the other week. So I agree. I think you can still start him. He has upside potential too. Go ahead.
Just jumping back to something real quick. If you want to make easy money, the touchdown odds for Evan Ingram this week are plus 290 for over a half a touchdown. So if you want to triple your money real easy, go put some money on it.
Yeah, I was going to say that I would put money on him getting a touchdown. I just think it's going to happen. So
yeah.
And then so Hopkins, I think for upside as well, you can throw him in there. Like if you need upside and you're talking about like Hopkins versus Downs, I think I'm going to go with Hopkins, even though Downs probably outscores him, or it's not crazy to think he outscores him, but I don't think Downs can give you like a 30-point week, which I still think Hopkins has somewhere in the tank. It's not going to happen regularly, but he still could. So
sure.
Yeah, that's it. I don't want to start anyone else. Receiver, tight end, no one. So make sure you roster Tajay Spears, but that's about it there. Maybe the game of the week here, Broncos Texans, potentially. I mean, I guess we probably already had the game of the week last night, but Broncos Texans could be a pretty sneaky one. We kind of already talked about Russ, but I think he's kind of right in that low end QB1. I almost said running back. Low end QB1. I'd start him over Kyler. I mean, Russ versus Goff. What are you doing there?
I'll probably start Russ
because of the shootout potential.
Yeah, I just think like they, given the narrative of like kind of that game, and Goff is going to have a little bit harder time with New Orleans, but I mean, it's definitely not like out of 100 times, I'd probably start Russ 65 of those and Goff the other 35.
What about Russ versus Sam Howell playing the Dolphins at home?
I'll start Russ the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I wouldn't. It's kind of a coin flip to me, to be honest, just because they could have to just throw a lot. The Commanders, that is. So I don't hate it, and Dolphins aren't necessarily great against the quarterback. So, but yeah, he's a low end QB1. Man, it's always tough though with like Javonte. Are we still just this week, especially? I think he is a starter this week. Like a must start in my opinion. To me, he's like a top at worst top 20 running back. So I think he's in lineups given the potential shootout here.
Yeah, and the usage is still good. Like, I mean, his snap share went up last week. We saw a lot more targets for him. Not a whole lot happened with it. Granted, he was playing Cleveland, who they actually the Broncos actually looked pretty good against in general. So you just kind of figure like a little bit softer defense this week. So maybe he can actually get into the end zone or something like that and really give you a good week. But I think his floor is pretty safe, probably right around 10 half PPR points.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Again, not many guys you can kind of pencil in for 15 plus touches and 3 or 4, including 3 or 4 catches in that 15 plus. So I think you kind of have to start him, and I think you have to start Sutton, who didn't catch a touchdown last week, but he has been every other week essentially, and we expect this to be a shootout. So I think Sutton's in there as a low end wide receiver too, like he is every week.
Yeah, he half dropped a touchdown last week too. Like, I don't think it was necessarily entirely his fault, but it was kind of like I think Russ threw it a little bit too far in front of him. It was almost there. I think I heard that he actually dropped one, and they weren't even talking about that one. So I don't know. I bet you he had a couple of end zone targets last week, and that's how you score touchdowns, is you get targeted in the end zone.
Yep. And Texans they're actually better against the run this year. I think they're one of the best against the run this year, weirdly enough, because they were terrible. But I don't think they're kind of middle of the road, I'm pretty sure, to receivers. So, start him up. Don't start Judy. He needs to go to another team. Texans are going to be easy. Dalton Schultz is out of this game. I think I saw that this morning or something. So Stroud, you're starting unless you have like Mahomes or Josh Allen's on a bye, huh? Mahomes or Hurts or something like that, which I guess you could, which is why we have to talk. Hurts, Dak, obviously he already played. Mahomes, Tua against Washington, or Stroud at home to Denver. Who are you starting?
You got to attack that Washington defense. Everyone just destroys the hell out of them. Like, it's just like a plug and play thing.
It's crazy.
And start your defenses. Start your Miami defense this week too, because I almost said Tua, but Sam Howell. Yeah, he is the most sacked quarterback in the league still, right? Isn't he breaking records and stuff?
Oh yeah. I don't know if he's still on pace to break a record. I haven't checked in a few weeks, but yeah, they're going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to get sacked. More opportunities for turnovers. So yeah, that's it though. It's Hurts, Dak, who played yesterday, Tua, Mahomes, and then Stroud. I agree with that list. So starting them up, unless you have one of those guys, Nico and Tank Dell are must starts. And Singletary, I think this week I'm starting as well. The box score shows they had basically the same amount of carries. I think they had the same amount, Dameon Pierce and Singletary, that is, but Singletary absolutely dominated the snap count. Now, that could be because Pierce was coming back from the injury and they're going to work him in a little bit more, but I'm still going to start Singletary. I know he had a bad week last week, but he had 6 catches for 54 yards. Denver's terrible against the run, so I'm starting Singletary as well. Any objections?
No, I think you are starting him. I do think that it's a little worrisome that Damian Pierce did have like you said, if you just look at the box score, they have similar rush lines, but Singletary outsnapped him 4-1, but I, it's a little worrisome where it's they were obviously bringing in Pierce kind of trying to ease him back in almost. And he was obviously getting used as he was on the field. So if we see that snap share kind of return to what it was pre-injury, I think it could be a pretty decent split between the two. But we haven't seen anything to suggest it yet. But it's just something to keep in mind. Watch those numbers this week, and obviously, Houston has a good offense, but it's kind of running through the quarterback and everything too. So.
Yeah. And again, Broncos are the worst team against running backs. It is a little inflated because of the 70-20 game against Miami, but they still give up a lot of 9 for 68, 12 for 109, 10 for 73, 8 for 80, 18 for 81, 9 for 65. That's the last since week 10, what they've given up to running backs. So they give up a huge yards per carry. So you could get 10 carries from Singletary. He could give you 60 yards, maybe scores a touchdown, 4 catches. So I like him this week with all these buys. 2 more games to go over, and Dalton Schultz is out, so we don't have to talk about any tight end. 2 more games here. We got the Lions and the Saints. Interesting one here, mostly because the Saints are pretty beat up on defense. I'm just going to pull up their injury report real quick. They're missing 3 key guys, I'm pretty sure, on this defense. Cameron Jordan, a pass rusher. Marcus May, one of their starting safeties. And then Pete Werner, one of their running linebackers, did not practice the first 2 practices. And those are pretty significant injuries there. So with the Lions, I'm fine with Goff. To me, he's right in that Kyler, Russell Wilson range, where you can kind of flip a coin with him, honestly. And you probably, hopefully, won't go wrong. I mean, obviously you're going to choose a wrong or right one, but I think they're all going to give you in 6-point, the 18 to 23 point range. That's kind of where I'm putting them. Do you like Goff? And definitely the guys after Goff, Love, Mayfield, Minshew. I'm starting Goff, no questions over those guys. Where are you at with Goff this week?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm still I'll start Russell Wilson over him. But
you're not gonna be shocked if Goff scores 3 more points than Russell Wilson or something, right?
No.
Yeah. Yep. So it's kind of maybe you can lean matchup, maybe you can lean a potential shootout with Russ, so if you want to think about tiebreakers like that, if your tiebreaker between Kyler and Goff could be, no Marquise Brown or something, I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at with those guys. Who's ranked the running backs in this game? Gibbs, Montgomery, Kamara in half PPR. I think that's an interesting one. They're all starts, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's Kamara, Gibbs, Montgomery at this point.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite realize this because I missed part of the Green Bay Detroit game, or at least I maybe I just didn't notice as much. But Montgomery only played a quarter of the snaps. He was very much involved. You can tell they're using him when he's on the field because he had 15 touches and a target in only basically 30% of the snaps. Whereas Gibbs was out there probably running a lot of routes and stuff. And he got 8 targets and still 11 carries. So it's a little worrisome for Montgomery, but he's been getting a touchdown every week for the last 3 weeks since he came back. And without those touchdowns, he's still giving you a good floor, over 10 half PPR points. So I think, you're still starting both of them, but he's definitely 3 on the list in my eyes.
I will say this about the Montgomery thing and it happened against Chicago as well, is that they were playing from behind a lot in that game. Um, both those games, they got down early to Green Bay, got down early to Chicago, and they're going to use Gibbs more in that situation. Um, so that could be part of it. I don't think it's going to be as drastic as it was last week, where I think it's going to be closer to like at worst a 60-40 for 60 for Gibbs and 40 for Montgomery. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're in control of this game, it's 60-40 in Montgomery's favor. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. But yeah, since he's come back from his injury, he hasn't had more than 40% of the snaps. But he's going to get the goal line carries if they're have this game in hand. He's going to be the guy to kind of put them, out, put the Saints out with 10 carries on a drive or something. So
yeah,
they're all must starts for sure.
And the Saints are decent against running back, but they're not even top 10. So it's just kind of like
Cam
really
Jordan and Werner out are big for their the run game. So
yeah.
And also for Laporta. So I still have Laporta as a must start, especially because Werner is the guy that's going to be covering him a lot. And he's going to be out. So I like him, St. Brown, any other interest in the pass catcher here, like Jameson, Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, or is just pass on all of them?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you could try and guess which one of those guys. Jameson for the big play upside, I guess. But I don't know. I'm not starting any of those guys.
Yeah, neither am I. It's Laporta and St. Brown, and then the running backs and golf. Saints side of things are going to be interesting because I'm just going to double check. I don't think, we haven't gotten a Friday report. I don't think Rashid Shaheed's going to play. I don't think Olave is going to play either, to be honest. They're both in concussion. No, Shaheed's a thigh. Olave, I don't think he's going to. Well, he's limited. I don't know. If Olave plays, he's a must start. And I think it makes Carr a little interesting as a streamer this week if Olave does play. Like if we're talking about, in the range of like the Baker, Minshew, Carr range. And I think if Olave plays, I'm fine with throwing him in there over Baker and Minshew. But if Olave is out, and especially if Rashid Shaheed, both those guys are out, I'm going to pass on Carr. Where are you at with that in terms of Carr, versus Minshew and Mayfield?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm probably going to start Minshew over Carr regardless. I don't know. You could definitely make the case Carr over Minshew, only if Olave plays, though, because he will have his main two pass catchers there in Olave and Kamara. So, yeah, Kamara's gonna get 10 targets this week, especially if Olave doesn't play, and he might even get it with Olave. You never know.
For sure. Yeah, Kamara is an obvious start. You said you would take a flyer if Shaheed and Olave are out. You're fine with taking a flyer on A.T. Perry. How far down the list are we talking? Are you starting him over Dotson, Romeo Dobbs, Elijah Moore, Tyler Boyd, these guys?
Yeah, I'm starting him over all those guys. Let's see. I'm just kind of looking at
Curtis
I think it's
Samuel.
I'll start him over Curtis Samuel. That could be a bit of a shootout too, but if he's going to be basically the number one target behind Kamara, I think there's some pretty decent upside. Washington's I never know who to pick on that team. So that's a tough one, but I think you could do worse than A.T. Perry if all the other guys are out.
Yeah, I agree. Dobbs is interesting because I think Jaden Reed, when we get to that game, he might miss this game. But Elijah Moore, take A.T. Perry over Elijah Moore with PJ Walker or Flacco. I don't know who they're starting, or Tyler Boyd with Jake Browning. Take A.T. Perry over them. And then Juwan Johnson, we like just for the reasons we said, right? Like he's kind of in that low end tight end one. Logan Thomas, Kate Otten, Juwan Johnson. Like I'm probably going to lean Johnson over those guys because he could get a bulk of the carries, and Taysom Hill. Both those guys, I think.
I know. It's funny that we're at that point of the year. Taysom Hill must start.
Yeah. Especially and I think they are going to miss Shaheed and Olave are out. So,
and they're going to use him as a rusher, obviously. Like he's going to be in there I don't even know. Do you call it a wildcat if Taysom Hill's taking the snap with a designed run in mind kind of a thing? It's like kind of, not really. I don't know what you call that.
I don't know if it's a wildcat or not, but he's going to get rushes. He has 5, 9, 11, 1, 7 the last 5 games. So, and you imagine he's going to be a little bit more involved in the receiving game. So, like
it'd be really funny if they had him in multiple spots on the depth chart, like if he's under like quarterback 2 and he's tight end 2 and running back 3 and like he's just all of these guys.
The Falcons had someone this year when I was looking at depth charts preseason, and I forget what they called it, but it was like their 4th string quarterback it was basically like their Taysom Hill, and they listed it as something, and now I forget, like the Joker maybe or something like that.
I think I remember you telling me this, and I don't remember what it was called either.
So on ESPN's depth chart, they have Taysom Hill as QB3 and tight end 2. So they don't have him as a wide receiver though. If you're getting super deep, the other wide receiver I would target after A.T. Perry's Lynn Bowden. That's like super deep leagues, so we don't have to spend much time there.
Yeah, that's like 16 team stuff.
Yeah. So Falcons Jets hopefully will be easy to kind of wrap this up. And Falcons at the Jets. We have Falcons. I mean, Bijan's an obvious start. I think Drake London is a start this week with all the buys. This is like the perfect, like, you shouldn't really have to like think about if you're starting Drake London or not. Like, I know you have to think about it almost every week, but to me, I don't know. And now that I'm thinking about it, playing the Jets, like,
yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. It's like I don't know if I do want to start Drake London this week, given that we're playing the Jets. Like, I don't feel good about that at all. I think I'd rather start Tyler Algier over Drake London at this point this week. I don't know.
You're right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really tough just given the matchup. People don't throw on him or they can't. And he's going to see, I don't know, does Sauce Gardner actually shadow guys?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, so he's just all over the field then.
But they have 2 really good cornerbacks.
Okay.
So they don't really need to. I'm just looking at their injury report. They have a lot of guys on there, but not huge. Looks like most of them are going to play or are questionable and probably will play. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of walk it back. I think you're right. Like, the Jets only give up 19.5 points per game in half PPR to all wide receivers. So, yeah, I think you're right there. Try to avoid them if you can. 3 wide receiver leagues is going to be harder too, but definitely in 2 wide receiver leagues. And then I think I would have dropped Pitts at this point. So I don't even want to really talk about him. He hasn't had more than 6 points. Oh, that's standard. But probably not going to be much better anyways. Like, he hasn't had more than 7.6 points since week 7. I'm dropping him. I'm done.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah, I know. We did it again. We waited way too long to make a decision on Kyle Pitts, and I don't know. I mean, the only saving grace for that is that he's a tight end, and so hopefully he didn't kill your team, but he definitely didn't help it.
Probably when you were thinking about dropping him, he went back-to-back 12-point weeks, 5 and 6, you know? Like,
I think
damn it, now I got to keep
what
going.
Happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, again, hasn't done much, so. And then the Jets, it's like always, it's obviously, I mean, Breece Hall, even though he hasn't been an efficient runner, has still been putting up points through the air. Just double checking that. Yeah, I mean, his worst week since the bye is 8 points in half PPR, which isn't terrible, and he has the potential to give you a 20-point week. So I'm still starting Breece Hall. And where are you at with Garrett Wilson, who's still wide receiver 25 this year, despite everything?
Yeah, well, I think that just speaks to the talent, right? Like, it's like, all right, well, like there's not a lot of there's not a super high ceiling there, but I mean he's scoring over double-digit PPR points basically every game, you know, with like a floor of maybe a little bit under that. I mean, what's his target share? I'm just looking at it. It's like they can't be throwing that much, and
has to be massive.
I bet you it's like 40% or something like that. It's like there's too many quarterbacks to go through to try and figure out.
Yeah. Was it Tim Boyle last week? So he had 10 targets. Tim Boyle threw it. Yeah. 38 times. 38.
So about a quarter, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. You're definitely starting Garrett Wilson. Talent outdoes situation there.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, massive target share. It's insane. Not the best targets, but there's a reason why he's wide receiver 25 with only 3 touchdowns. So, and like you said, like despite everything with the Jets, you look at every week, and he's only given you one killed you week, and that was his minus 0.1, where he had like 1 catch and a fumble. Everything else, it's like, all right, I got 7 points at least, and then everything else has been pretty good. So, starting him. Anything else on this game?
No.
The Falcons win, and I hope the Jets win. Who do you think wins? I think I picked the Jets.
I hope the Jets win too, just because the Falcons are leading my shitty division. So,
and we want Arthur Smith gone. So,
yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen. Like,
not if they win the division, that's for sure.
They're gonna make the playoffs. As weird as that is.
I don't know. It's always like in these matchups, I'm always like, Jets defense is the best thing, like out of both these teams.
Yeah.
But then I don't know. They've had a couple of these matchups recently, and I think they've just kind of lost them all. So I don't know. It's always a tough one.
Yeah, well, we still expect them to lose games. We just expect them to like hold the other team in check, kind of. And yeah, the last 2 weeks, you know, is Dolphins and Bills. And they held them for a little bit. Like, I think Josh Allen had 2 super long touchdown passes in that game. And it was kind of just like, 1 play, you know, or 2 plays, I guess, really changed the tide of that game. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for the Jets. They suck. Their defense is good, but the team sucks.
Yeah, Tim Boyle was terrible, and everyone's excited about him. So, oh man. Anyways, we're gonna finish up there, and we'll be back with the other 6 games, the 5 Sunday games and 1 Monday game. As always, like and subscribe. Catch you guys next time.